Maybe you've had a long day. Maybe your thoughts are still echoing with the sounds of the world, unfinished tasks, soft worries, or the gentle hum of life that never quite stops. But now, the night has come, and with it, an invitation not to strive, but to rest. Let the room grow still around you. Let your shoulders soften and your breath deepen. Feel the quiet draw near, like a tender friend. This is your time, a sacred pause between today and tomorrow, where the heart can remember that it is loved and the soul can breathe again. Tonight, the story that will carry us towards sleep is one of quiet strength and unseen purpose. It is a story whispered through palace halls and silent prayers, the story of Esther, the hidden queen of Persia, whose courage bloomed in the shadow of fear and whose faith moved the hand of history. The book of Esther is a tapestry of divine subtlety, God's name never spoken, yet his presence woven into every thread. It is a story of what happens when ordinary lives meet extraordinary timing, when a young woman's yes becomes a nation's salvation. And as we rest in these ancient words, we'll drift through 100 sacred truths drawn from Esther's journey. 100 reminders that even in silence, God is working. Even in stillness, he is near. So as the lights dim, imagine the soft flicker of a candle. See its flame bow and rise, painting golden halos on the walls. Outside your window, the stars keep watch, the same stars that once shone above Susa, the city where Esther once walked. The same heavens that heard her prayers, still listening now. Let the noise of the day fade. Let your mind uncoil, thought by thought, like a river finding its calm. Each breath is a doorway into peace. Each heartbeat a reminder that you are held, gently, completely, endlessly. Tonight, we walk slowly, through royal courts and moonlit chambers, through moments of fear and triumph, through the unfolding of grace unseen yet unbroken. And as you listen, may your heart find rest in the rhythm of Scripture, in the poetry of purpose, and in the soft assurance that God's timing is never late and his presence is never absent. So close your eyes now. Breathe in deeply, as though drawing in the stillness of the night itself. Exhale slowly, letting go of all that burdens you. Feel peace settle around you like a warm cloak of light. And as your spirit begins to rest, come, let the peace of God surround you as we begin our pilgrimage through the book of Esther. Fact 1. Before Esther had a crown, she had a story written in the quiet ink of God's providence. She was an orphan, a child of exile in a foreign land, raised by her cousin Mordecai. The world around her was grand and uncertain, filled with kings and decrees, but Esther's life began in simplicity and loss. And yet, in that quiet beginning, God was already preparing a queen. Sometimes the Lord hides greatness in gentle beginnings, shaping the soul in silence before the world ever takes notice. As you rest, remember this: what feels small or unseen in your life may already be part of a divine plan unfolding softly beneath the surface. Breathe in and let trust replace worry. Even in your quiet places, heaven is at work. Fact 2. In the kingdom of Persia, beauty was honored and power rested on thrones of gold. But God's hand moved beyond the glitter of the palace. When King Xerxes sought a new queen, hundreds of young women were brought before him, each adorned with perfumes and jewels. Yet it was Esther, humble and gentle, who found favor in his sight. Her grace was not merely seen, it was felt. The peace of one whose spirit had learned to listen. True beauty, the kind that moves hearts and alters destinies, is born from quiet faith, not outward adornment. It is the calm light of a soul that trusts in something greater than itself. As you breathe tonight, imagine that same gentle light resting upon you, not earned, not adorned, but given freely by the one who delights in you. Fact 3. The palace walls shimmered with power, but within them, danger slept unseen. Haman, a man of influence, rose in pride and plotted harm against Mordecai and the Jewish people. Yet even as shadows gathered, God's hidden story was still being written, a plan of deliverance quietly forming behind closed doors. Esther did not yet know she would be the vessel of that salvation, but heaven did. Sometimes, we walk through days unaware of how our courage will one day matter. Tonight, let that truth rest gently upon your heart. What you live faithfully in silence today may one day become someone else's miracle. So breathe and trust the author of unseen deliverance. Fact 4. When Esther entered the royal court, she did not rush to speak, nor did she seek to impress. Instead, she listened to the counsel of those who guided her and to the still whisper within her spirit. In a world that prized appearance, her wisdom became her crown. Sometimes faith is not the loudness of certainty, but the quiet strength of listening before acting. As the night deepens around you, remember that God often speaks in whispers, not thunder. Listen to the silence. It may carry his voice. Let stillness become your prayer, and peace your understanding. Fact 5. Hidden behind her royal robes, Esther carried the heart of her people, a secret identity wrapped in courage. She lived between two worlds, the glittering halls of Persia and the quiet faith of her ancestors. To reveal the truth too soon could cost her life, yet to hide forever would cost her purpose. There are seasons when God calls us to wait before revealing who we truly are, moments when our faith matures in patience. As you breathe tonight, remember that waiting is not wasting. Every silent season is a sacred preparation for the moment your purpose is revealed. Let that thought cradle your spirit like a lullaby of divine timing. Fact 6. While Esther learned the rhythms of royal life, Mordecai kept watch by the king's gate, a guardian in plain sight. One day, he overheard a plot to kill the king and quietly reported it, saving a life. His good deed went unnoticed for a time, written down in the royal records, and forgotten by men, but never forgotten by God. There is comfort in knowing that heaven keeps its own record of faithfulness, even when the world forgets. What you do in love today may not be seen, but it is never lost. As you rest, let your heart release the need to be recognized. The one who sees in secret remembers every kindness, every prayer, every tear. Sleep peacefully, knowing that nothing good is ever forgotten in the sight of God. Fact 7. In the quiet corridors of the palace, Esther's life seemed calm, yet the world outside her walls trembled with change. Haman's pride had grown fierce, his heart consumed by hatred toward Mordecai and the people of God. He built his plans on arrogance, never knowing that pride always plants the seeds of its own fall. Even when evil appears strong, its roots are fragile before the justice of heaven. The Lord allows shadows only long enough for his light to shine brighter when it breaks through. As you rest, remember, darkness is never final. Close your eyes and picture the sunrise after a long night, gentle, sure, and unstoppable. Fact 8. When the decree went out to destroy the Jews, Mordecai tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and wept in the city streets. His mourning was a prayer without words, a cry that reached higher than palaces or thrones. And from the depths of his grief came a message for Esther, Who knows if you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Those words, like a spark in the dark, awakened her destiny. Sometimes, God calls us in the quiet ache of compassion, when another's pain stirs our courage to act. As you breathe tonight, let that question echo softly in your soul. What if this very moment of your life was chosen for something sacred? Let your purpose unfold gently as dawn unfolds from darkness. Fact 9. Esther's heart trembled as she prepared to approach the king, an act forbidden unless he extended his golden scepter. Between her and death stood silence and faith. For 3 days she fasted, asking her people to join her, seeking strength not from power but from prayer. There is a holy stillness that fills the space between fear and faith, a waiting where heaven listens. When she finally stepped into the throne room, she carried with her the invisible presence of God. So too, you are never alone when you walk into uncertain places. As sleep draws near, feel that same unseen presence beside you, calm, radiant, unafraid. You are held in divine favor. Fact 10. When Esther stepped before the king, time itself seemed to pause. The golden scepter extended toward her, mercy in motion, grace made visible. In that single gesture, the fear that once held her heart began to fade. God's favor often arrives not as thunder, but as a quiet yes. Behind every door of risk lies the gentle hand of providence, guiding each heartbeat toward its purpose. As you breathe tonight, remember that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move gently through it, trusting that love goes before you. The same grace that covered Esther covers you. Steady, unseen, eternal. Fact 11. The king asked Esther what her request might be, offering her up to half his kingdom. But wisdom taught her to wait. She invited the king and Haman to a banquet instead, a meal wrapped in mystery and divine timing. Esther's patience was her strength. She moved in rhythm with heaven's clock. Not every answer must come quickly, for waiting allows the unseen to align. There is beauty in holy delay, in the pauses that prepare deliverance. As you rest, let your soul find peace in patience. Every unanswered prayer may simply be a banquet still being prepared. Trust that what God is arranging for you is more perfect than haste could ever bring. Fact 12. As the banquet unfolded, Haman's pride blossomed into vanity. He left the gathering filled with self-importance, enraged that Mordecai would not bow to him. In his anger, he ordered gallows to be built, towering wood that he believed would exalt his vengeance. Yet even as nails were driven, heaven smiled softly, for pride was crafting its own undoing. In the quiet balance of divine justice, every wrong is weighed, every shadow temporary. As night deepens, remember, you need not fight every battle yourself. Rest in the promise that truth defends itself in time. Let your worries fall away, one by one, until only peace remains. The kind that knows God is still writing the story. Fact 13. That very night, when the world slept, the king could not. Rest fled from him, as if heaven itself stirred his heart awake. He called for the royal chronicles to be read, the quiet records of forgotten deeds. And there, by divine design, he heard again of Mordecai's faithfulness in saving his life. No good act is ever truly forgotten. It waits in God's timing to be remembered. In the hush of your own night, let this truth soothe you. Every kindness, every unseen act of love rests safely in the heart of the one who writes perfect remembrance. Breathe softly. Heaven's timing never sleeps. Fact 14. When the king asked who had honored Mordecai for his loyalty, the answer came, "Nothing has been done for him." And as those words lingered, Haman entered, arriving at the precise moment God had arranged. He came to ask permission to hang Mordecai, but instead he was chosen to parade him through the streets in royal robes, declaring his honor before all. Such is the quiet irony of divine justice, when pride becomes the servant of righteousness. Even when circumstances seem to turn against you, God is weaving threads unseen, preparing a reversal greater than imagination. Tonight, rest in that promise. The story is not finished until mercy has spoken. Fact 15. Haman returned home humiliated, his plans unraveling beneath the weight of unseen grace. His friends and wife spoke words he could not bear. "If Mordecai is of the seed of the Jews, before whom you have begun to fall, you will not prevail." Even the proud must bow before destiny when it is written by God. Sometimes, the turning of a story begins not with thunder, but with the faint sound of truth being whispered into a hardened heart. As you breathe now, let go of every battle you carry alone. The one who turned Haman's triumph into humility can turn your burdens into blessings. Let his quiet power surround you like night air, steady, unseen, victorious. Fact 16. As morning light spilled over the palace, Esther prepared once more to stand before the king. The moment had come to reveal her heart and her heritage, the truth she had carried in silence for so long. At the second banquet, she lifted her eyes and spoke with grace. "If I have found favor in your sight, O king, and if it pleases you, let my life be given me at my petition, and my people at my request." Her words fell like gentle rain, honest, brave, and holy. In that quiet confession, destiny bloomed. Courage often speaks softly, yet its echo shakes kingdoms. As you rest, let the peace of Esther's faith fill you, the assurance that truth, spoken in love, carries heaven's own authority. Fact 17. When the king heard that Haman was the author of the plot against Esther's people, anger flared like fire breaking through darkness. He rose from the table and stepped into the garden, his heart torn between shock and justice. But in those moments of confusion, divine justice was already at work. As the king returned, Haman fell before Esther, pleading for his life, and by that act, sealed his own fate. The very gallows he built for Mordecai became his own undoing. Such is the balance of God's righteousness, not cruel, but complete. As the night deepens around you, remember, evil never stands forever. Truth may take time, but it always rises, as sure as the dawn. Fact 18. When the sun rose over Susa the next day, peace began to whisper through the city streets. Haman's pride had fallen, and Mordecai's faith was lifted high. The king placed upon him the royal signet ring, the same one stripped from Haman's hand. The symbol of oppression became the seal of deliverance. In God's story, even the instruments of harm can be transformed into tools of blessing. What was meant for sorrow becomes a melody of redemption. So, as you lie beneath the quiet sky, breathe deeply and release every fear. The same God who turned mourning into triumph still reigns in your life, unseen yet unshaken, weaving victory through your waiting. Fact 19. With the fall of Haman, the danger did not yet fade. The decree for the destruction of the Jews still lingered, sealed in the unchangeable law of Persia. Yet even what cannot be undone by man can still be redeemed by God. Esther once more came before the king, her heart steady with purpose and prayer. She bowed low, her tears like diamonds upon the floor, and begged for mercy for her people. The king listened, and love moved his heart again. It is a gentle reminder that intercession, standing in the gap for others, is one of the purest forms of faith. Tonight, whisper a prayer for someone in need and trust that heaven hears even the quietest cry. Fact 20. The king granted Esther's request. A new decree was written, one that gave her people the right to defend themselves on the appointed day. What once carried despair now carried hope. The same ink that had promised destruction now wrote deliverance. Mordecai, now clothed in royal blue and white, stepped out from the palace radiant with purpose. The people rejoiced. Light replaced sorrow. There is a sacred beauty in God's reversals, when tears become songs and ashes turn to crowns. As you breathe softly, remember this truth. No decree of darkness can cancel the promise of light. Every moment of fear is only a doorway for faith to enter. Fact 21. Across the vast provinces of Persia, from India to Ethiopia, word of the new decree spread swiftly. Joy rippled through the hearts of those once trembling in silence. Where grief had reigned, gladness bloomed. Esther's courage had become a river of life, flowing outward, touching countless souls she would never meet. Such is the quiet power of obedience. It ripples beyond its moment, shaping futures unseen. As you rest beneath the hush of night, think of that gentle wave of joy spreading through generations. Your faith, too, sends ripples through eternity. Every act of trust, every prayer in darkness becomes light for someone else's dawn. Rest in that wonder. Your life is part of a greater peace unfolding. Fact 22. When the day of destiny arrived, the 13th day of the 12th month, fear had no power left to reign. The people of God stood together, strengthened by courage that flowed from unseen hands. Where despair once lingered, faith now stood radiant and sure. They defended their lives not with hate, but with the steady knowledge that deliverance had already been decreed. God's promises do not falter when the battle begins. They are written long before, sealed in mercy. As you breathe tonight, imagine those who once trembled, now rejoicing in newfound strength. Their courage is a whisper across time. You, too, are never alone in the fight for peace. Heaven surrounds you, even in silence. Fact 23. In every province and city, as victory unfolded, a sacred joy filled the air. Feasting and celebration replaced mourning and fear. Homes once darkened by dread now glowed with candlelight and laughter. The miracle was not only in their deliverance, but in the transformation of their hearts, from trembling to thankfulness. Sometimes the greatest triumph is not survival, but the return of joy. Let your own heart rest in that same stillness, the peace that comes when fear is finally replaced by gratitude. Even now, the Spirit of God breathes comfort into your soul, reminding you that rejoicing often follows just beyond the final sigh of surrender. You can let go. You are safe in His keeping. Fact 24. And so the days of remembrance were born, the feast that would come to be called Purim. It was named for the lots Haman had cast, believing he could dictate fate. Yet God turned those lots into symbols of deliverance. Purim became a yearly song of joy, a remembrance of how light outshone darkness. Each year, families would tell their children the story so that they would never forget how the unseen hand of God rescued them. As you drift toward sleep, imagine lanterns glowing in the windows of ancient homes, prayers rising like incense. Your own nights of fear, too, will become days of remembrance, moments you will look back upon and say, "He was faithful there." Fact 25. The Feast of Purim became more than a day of joy. It became a living testimony of grace remembered. Mordecai wrote letters throughout the provinces, asking that the celebration be kept for generations to come. He wanted the people never to forget that deliverance had not come by sword or strength, but by the unseen orchestration of God. Every laugh at the table, every loaf shared, every prayer whispered in thanks was a sacred echo of that miracle. Remembrance itself became worship. As you breathe tonight, think of the quiet blessings in your own story, the rescues you may not have noticed until now. Every answered prayer, every hidden mercy is worth remembering with peace. Fact 26. Esther's courage did not fade when the danger passed. She continued to stand beside Mordecai, helping to write and seal the decrees that established peace in the empire. Her voice, once trembling, had become steady with purpose. The girl who once hid her faith now guided a kingdom with it. Faith matures in the soil of trial. It grows roots where fear once lived. So too, the challenges that once frightened you are shaping strength within your spirit. Let that truth settle softly over your heart tonight. You are not who you were when your journey began. Grace has made you stronger, even in your stillness. Fact 27. In time, Mordecai rose to greatness under King Xerxes, second only to the throne. He ruled not through pride, but through peace, seeking the good of his people and speaking words of comfort and truth. The same man who once sat by the gate in obscurity now sat beside a king in honor. It is the rhythm of divine reversal. Humility lifted up, service crowned with favor. When you feel unseen or forgotten, remember Mordecai's story. The gatekeeper became a guide for nations. Every humble act done in love prepares you for a greater purpose, even if that purpose unfolds slowly. Rest in the assurance that God exalts the faithful in His own perfect time, and His timing is always gentle. Fact 28. As the years unfolded, the story of Esther and Mordecai became a lamp for generations. Parents told it softly by firelight, teaching their children that God's presence does not always shout. Sometimes it simply is. Even though His name was never written in the book, His fingerprints were everywhere, in the sleepless night of a king, in the courage of a queen, in the faith of a humble man. This is the secret melody of providence, that heaven works in quiet harmony with the choices of faithful hearts. As you breathe slowly, feel that same presence near you now, unseen, yet nearer than breath, steady as light beneath the door of night. Fact 29. Esther's story teaches us that faith is not always about seeing miracles, but about becoming one. She did not part seas or call down fire. Her miracle was courage clothed in humility. Her voice, soft yet steadfast, became the turning point of history. God often works through those who never sought to be noticed, through those who pray more than they speak, who love more than they demand. Perhaps your gentleness, too, is a kind of miracle. As you rest tonight, remember that faith is not measured by noise or recognition, but by quiet obedience and steady love. Your calm trust may be changing the world in ways you cannot yet see. Fact 30. At the end of Esther's tale, the world did not explode in grandeur. It settled into peace. The days of sorrow were replaced by songs, and fear gave way to feasting. This is how divine stories end. Not in the clamor of victory, but in the hush of contentment. Even now, God writes such endings in our lives, turning chaos into calm, wounds into wisdom, storms into still waters. As you drift toward sleep, let your heart echo that peace. The same God who brought rest to his people brings rest to you tonight. Breathe in deeply and let the story of Esther wrap around your soul like a gentle blanket. A reminder that every trial, when trusted to God, becomes peace in the end. Fact 31. The story of Esther is one of divine timing, of doors that open only when hearts are ready to walk through them. Had Esther spoken too soon, the plan would not have ripened. Had she waited too long, the moment might have passed. But God's whisper met her exactly when it should. In that balance of patience and purpose lies the rhythm of grace. Our lives, too, unfold in holy time, not delayed, not rushed, but precisely aligned with unseen mercy. As you breathe now, release the need to control the pace of your journey. Trust that each heartbeat is part of a divine calendar written in love, one that never misses a moment. Fact 32. Esther's strength was never born from certainty. It was born from surrender. Before she entered the king's presence, she fasted and prayed, giving her fear to God and receiving his peace in return. Her bravery came not from knowing the outcome, but from knowing the one who held it. True courage is not loud. It is quiet trust in the face of uncertainty. Even now, when your path feels hidden, that same strength is offered to you, not in force, but in stillness. As you rest, let your worries melt into the assurance that surrender is not weakness. It is faith, softly breathing in the dark, saying, "Thy will be done." Fact 33. In Esther's story, we see the beauty of partnership. A queen and her cousin working together under God's design. Esther had the voice. Mordecai had the wisdom. Together, they became the answer to their people's prayers. No one stands alone in the work of grace. We are all threads in the same divine tapestry. When you feel small, remember that your life is intertwined with others in ways you cannot yet see. Each act of kindness strengthens the whole. Each prayer adds another stitch of light. As the night deepens, imagine your faith glowing quietly among countless others, forming a radiant pattern only heaven can see. You are part of something vast and sacred, something everlasting. Fact 34. When Esther first entered the palace, she did not know that her quiet obedience would one day save an entire nation. She simply walked faithfully through each open door. It is often this way with divine callings. They begin in the ordinary, and only later reveal their holy weight. God hides eternity inside small steps of faith. The task before you tonight may seem simple or unseen, but it may be the doorway to something eternal. As you breathe slowly, rest in that truth. Obedience in small things prepares the heart for great purposes. Even the smallest yes to God echoes through time like a hymn that never fades. Fact 35. Mordecai's faith was as steady as the morning star. He never sought recognition, yet when honor found him, he wore it humbly, remembering the one who gave it. When the king robed him in glory, Mordecai walked through the streets not as a conqueror, but as a servant. This is the beauty of holy favor. It does not inflate the soul. It deepens it. True honor is not the lifting of pride, but the quiet deepening of gratitude. As the night folds around you, may your spirit rest in humility's peace, that soft space where strength and gentleness dwell together. Remember, every grace given is meant to shine outward, not upward. Fact 36. The story of Esther closes with peace reigning in the land, but its echo continues beyond the scroll. Each generation that tells it finds a mirror of its own trials and hopes within her courage. Esther's name, meaning star, still shines through time, a reminder that light can dwell even in hiddenness. She was a woman of quiet radiance, guided not by power, but by purpose. And so, when you feel small beneath the vast sky, remember her light, steady, enduring, constant. You too carry that spark of divine brightness, even when clouds seem to hide it. As you rest, imagine that star within you, glowing softly through the night, whispering, "You were made to shine, even here, even now." Fact 37. The story of Esther teaches that divine silence is never divine absence. Though God's name was never spoken within its pages, His presence moved through every line. Unseen, yet unshakable. Sometimes the holiest work happens in quiet corners, without thunder or miracles. When you cannot hear His voice, it does not mean He has turned away. It means He is working in ways too deep for sound. As you breathe softly, let that truth wrap around your heart like a warm shawl. The unseen hand that guided Esther guides you too, through uncertainty, through waiting, through every hidden season of grace. Fact 38. There is beauty in how Esther's story turns fear into faith and faith into rest. What began with trembling ended with rejoicing. The arc of her journey reminds us that no night lasts forever. Even when hope feels distant, it is quietly moving closer. One prayer, one heartbeat, one sunrise at a time. Your own story is shaped by that same light, rising gently beyond what you can see. As you rest tonight, let every breath remind you, the darkness has an ending. And when morning comes, you will see what faith was building all along. Peace that waited patiently for you to awaken to it. Fact 39. Mordecai's name, once whispered only by those at the gate, became a blessing upon the lips of many. He used his influence not for pride, but for peace, speaking goodness, seeking welfare, protecting life. This is what divine favor looks like when it matures. Compassion. The higher God lifts a soul, the gentler it becomes. When you rise in any measure of grace or success, let kindness be your crown. As you breathe, picture Mordecai walking through the palace gardens, the sound of distant laughter in the streets, peace settling like dew upon the city. Such stillness is not an ending, but a benediction, a blessing that lingers over those who choose humility over power. Let that same peace settle over you now and rest. Fact 40. Every story of faith carries a hidden thread of preparation. Before Esther stood in the palace, she lived in the humble home of Mordecai, learning compassion and patience. Before she wore a crown, she wore the garments of a servant heart. God's way often leads through humility before honor, through silence before song. When life feels small, it may simply be the gentle shaping of destiny. Nothing sacred is ever wasted. Every quiet moment, every waiting hour is part of the divine weaving. As you breathe tonight, trust that your present stillness is sacred ground, where purpose is being born in silence. Fact 41. The Feast of Purim was more than remembrance. It was celebration born from redemption. Joy itself became worship. Laughter became thanksgiving. And stories became prayers. Through it, God taught His people that holiness is not only found in tears, but in joy, restored. To rejoice after sorrow is to honor the one who carried you through it. So, as the night deepens, let your soul smile gently, not with loud happiness, but with quiet contentment. The peace that fills you after trial is the same peace that filled the streets of Susa. Let that joy breathe within you, like a small flame that never goes out. Fact 42. The book of Esther ends without thunder or final prophecy. only with peace, stability, and the gentle hum of ordinary days. And yet, that quiet conclusion is itself a miracle. Not every divine victory ends in spectacle. Sometimes it ends in stillness, where hearts can finally rest. Peace is not the absence of sound, but the presence of assurance. As Esther and Mordecai lived out their days, the nation healed beneath their guidance, and generations learned that God's silence was full of speech. As you prepare to rest, let that same calm fill you. There is beauty in endings that feel simple, because they leave room for gratitude. Let your heart whisper thanks for the peace that remains when all is well and all is quiet. Fact 43. The power of Esther's story lies not only in her courage, but in her willingness to risk for love. When she said, "If I perish, I perish," it was not despair speaking, it was devotion. Her heart had surrendered completely to God's purpose, whatever the cost. True faith does not bargain, it simply trusts. It walks forward even when the outcome is hidden in shadow. As you breathe softly tonight, imagine that same surrender resting in your soul, the quiet bravery of letting go, the calm strength of trust that doesn't demand answers. In yielding, we find peace. In faith, we find rest. Fact 44. Mordecai's steadfastness reminds us that goodness often stands quietly at the gate, day after day, unnoticed yet unshaken. He never sought reward, yet his loyalty changed the course of nations. Sometimes the greatest acts of faith are small, remaining kind when no one sees, remaining patient when others rush, remaining faithful when others forget. God measures such things not in applause, but in eternity. As the night deepens, remember, your unseen faithfulness is seen by heaven. You need not strive to be noticed. The one who writes your story never overlooks a single act of love. Breathe deeply and let that knowing settle gently within you. You are never unseen by God. Fact 45. In every turn of the story, from banquets to decrees, from danger to deliverance, a pattern emerges. The quiet certainty that light is never absent, even when hidden. This is the sacred mystery of Esther's book, that God's presence does not need to be named to be known. He was there in the sleepless night of a king, in the trembling prayer of a queen, in the humble watchfulness of a servant. He is here too, in your waiting, in your breathing, in your rest. You may not always perceive his nearness, but like the stars behind clouds, his light remains constant. So, close your eyes and feel it, the still, faithful warmth of his presence surrounding you, steady as grace, quiet as peace. Fact 46. Esther's courage began not with power, but with prayer. Before she stood before the king, she bowed before the King of Heaven. For 3 days and nights, she and her people fasted, choosing stillness over panic, reverence over reaction. In those silent hours, her fear became faith. Prayer does not always change circumstances first. It changes the heart to meet them. When you feel the weight of the world pressing against your spirit, pause and breathe. Let your soul be still long enough to remember that peace begins where prayer is born. Like Esther, you can stand strong because you first knelt softly before God. Fact 47. The king's sleepless night was no accident. While the city of Susa rested, divine purpose stirred wakefulness in the royal chambers. A forgotten record was opened, and Mordecai's faithful deed was remembered. What seemed random was the rhythm of grace in motion. Sometimes, while you sleep, heaven works on your behalf, aligning hearts, opening doors, preparing answers. You do not need to see the plan to know it exists. As you lie beneath the hush of night, let that truth cradle you. Even in your rest, God does not rest. He labors in love for you, unseen, yet unwavering, so you can finally exhale and sleep in peace. Fact 48. The book of Esther reminds us that deliverance often begins in the unseen places, in hearts turned toward courage, in prayers whispered in silence, in moments when fear becomes faith. Esther's triumph was not sudden. It was slow, unfolding like dawn breaking after the longest night. So too, your breakthroughs may come quietly, step by step, with each act of trust. Every sunrise you wake to is proof that light always returns, even after darkness lingers. As you drift into rest, imagine that first gentle light touching the towers of ancient Susa, gilding the city with gold. The same dawn that watched over Esther watches over you still, steady, faithful, full of promise. Fact 49. The strength of Esther's story rests in her unseen faith. She walked into danger without a promise of safety, guided only by quiet conviction. Each step through the palace hall was a prayer, each breath a surrender. This is what faith truly is, not certainty, but peace in uncertainty. It is the courage to walk when the outcome is veiled. You too can rest in that faith tonight, knowing that unseen hands hold your tomorrow as tenderly as they hold your breath. Let that assurance soften your thoughts, and let calmness settle deep within you like evening light upon still water. Fact 50. Mordecai's rise from the gate to the throne room reflects the mercy of divine reversal, the mysterious way God turns sorrow into songs. He did not climb to power through pride, but was lifted by providence, his humility crowned with honor. The same voice that once whispered comfort to his niece now spoke peace to an entire nation. This is the promise of grace, that what begins in ashes can end in radiance. As you lie in the quiet dark, remember that reversals still happen. The story is not finished. God is still writing chapters of redemption in your life, even while you sleep. Fact 51. We have reached the still heart of our journey, the quiet center beneath the same stars that once watched over Esther. Breathe deeply now. Feel the gentle rhythm of your own heart, steady as the pulse of creation. The story so far has been one of courage, of trust, of faith unfolding softly through time. Let it rest upon you like a cool breeze through temple courtyards. You have walked beside Esther through fear and favor, through silence and revelation. Now pause here, in this sacred middle, and let gratitude fill the space within. The same God who guided her steps guides yours. Breathe in his peace. Exhale every weight. This is your moment beneath the eternal sky, a reminder that even in the stillness, you are seen, loved, and led. When you are ready, we will continue our pilgrimage together into the unfolding light of the story yet to come. Fact 52. As Esther's story continued beyond the peril, her days became woven with quiet stewardship. She did not fade when the danger passed. Instead, she lived in gratitude, guarding peace with prayer. Deliverance was not the end. It was the beginning of a gentler chapter. Sometimes the miracle is not surviving the storm, but learning to live with grace when the sky is clear. Peace is a sacred trust, and Esther carried it with humility. As you breathe tonight, remember, every season of calm is a gift, not an accident. Let gratitude be your rest, the soft song your soul sings when all is well again. Fact 53. Mordecai, seated in royal honor, never forgot the gate where his faith was tested. Even as power surrounded him, he remained a servant of compassion, using his influence to bless others. His greatness was not measured by title, but by tenderness. This is the quiet mark of those who walk with God. Their strength is gentle, their authority kind. As you rest beneath the hush of night, let that truth dwell in you. Greatness in the kingdom of heaven is clothed in humility. Every gentle word, every act of mercy is a crown that never fades. Breathe softly and let your spirit rest in that holy simplicity, the peace of a humble heart. Fact 54. When the people of God celebrated Purim each year, they did more than remember deliverance. They shared it. They sent gifts to one another and to the poor, turning remembrance into compassion. Joy overflowed into generosity, and thanksgiving became tangible. Such is the nature of divine joy. It cannot remain still. It must pour outward. Every blessing received becomes complete when it is shared. As you drift toward rest, imagine lamps glowing in windows across ancient Persia, laughter mingling with prayer, kindness flowing like a river. Let that same current touch your heart. Even in rest, your life can be a quiet offering of love, a soft light shining in the night. Fact 55. The story of Esther is a sanctuary of hidden grace. In it, we see that even when God's name is not mentioned, His mercy moves through every heartbeat of the tale. It is a quiet reminder that faith is not only for the miraculous, but for the mundane. For the days when nothing seems divine, and yet everything is being guided. Esther teaches us to trust what we cannot trace, to rest in what we cannot see. As you breathe tonight, release your need to understand. You are carried by the same unseen hand that shaped kingdoms and guarded a queen. Let faith be your pillow and peace your covering. Fact 56. When Mordecai's honor was proclaimed, the same streets that once ignored his faithfulness echoed with joy. His patience had become a bridge for deliverance, his steadfastness a song of hope. He had waited years for recognition, but heaven had been watching all along. Such is the beauty of divine timing. It arrives not when we demand it, but when our hearts are ready to receive it without pride. As you lie in stillness, let that thought bring calm. Every faithful act, however small, is written in the eternal book of remembrance. Nothing done in love is ever forgotten by God. Rest knowing your goodness, too, has been noticed by the one who sees in secret. Fact 57. Esther's crown was not her glory. It was her calling. She wore it not to be admired, but to serve. The truest crowns are made not of jewels, but of surrender. Her beauty was never in the gold that adorned her head, but in the grace that governed her heart. Every title, every gift, every blessing finds its purpose only when it becomes a vessel for love. As you breathe slowly, imagine laying your own invisible crown at the feet of heaven. Your achievements, your dreams, your worries, all are safe there, held in love. Let peace reign over your heart as gently as Esther reigned over her people, in stillness, in strength, in grace. Fact 58. The heart of Esther's story is not only about rescue, it is about remembrance. Each year, as the people celebrated their deliverance, they told the story again so that no one would forget what God had done. To remember is to worship. Every retelling becomes a prayer of gratitude. Every memory, a flame keeping faith alive. In your own life, too, remembrance is holy. Think of the moments when grace found you, when peace arrived unannounced, when light entered uninvited darkness. Let those memories be the lullabies of your soul. As you rest, whisper thanks for what was, for what is, and for what will be, all held safely in divine remembrance. Fact 59. There is a hidden rhythm in the story, a pulse of providence that beats beneath each decision, each coincidence, each twist of fate. The king's sleepless night, the turning of a page, the courage of a woman, the fall of a proud man, all threads of one great tapestry. None of it random, none of it wasted. Such is the pattern of God's hand, weaving meaning through the quiet hours of our lives. You may not see the design yet, but it is there, taking shape in gentleness. As you breathe now, imagine that weaving continuing, strands of mercy crossing strands of grace, forming something beautiful and eternal. Your story, too, is part of that pattern. Fact 60. Esther's name means star, and like a star, she shone brightest when the night was darkest. Her light did not erase the shadows, but it guided her people through them. In the same way, your faith does not need to be loud or flawless, only steady. A single light can guide an entire heart home. Let your soul rest in that image tonight. A quiet star, burning faithfully in a velvet sky, watched by the one who placed it there. You are not forgotten in the vastness. You are part of the constellation of his care, shining, loved, and seen. Let that assurance cradle you until dreams come softly and peace wraps around you like light. Fact 61. In every age, Esther's story reminds us the divine purpose often hides in ordinary days. Her life began in exile, with no sign of royalty, yet God's plan was already whispering through her steps. So, it is with us. He weaves greatness through our daily routines, our quiet faithfulness, our unseen acts of love. The smallest moment may hold the seed of something eternal. As you breathe softly, think of your day, its laughter, its struggles, its small mercies, and see how each thread glimmers under heaven's light. Nothing is wasted. All of it becomes part of the beautiful design only God can see from above. Fact 62. When fear first brushed Esther's heart, she did not turn away. She turned upward. Her instinct was not flight, but prayer. She gathered others to fast with her, linking hearts across distance through shared dependence on God. This is the quiet strength of unity and faith. One voice joined to many, rising like incense. Your prayers, too, are never alone. They join a chorus of souls across time who have trusted the same unchanging love. As you rest tonight, imagine those prayers surrounding you like soft music, ancient, tender, unbroken. You are part of something vast and holy, even in your whisper. Fact 63. The story ends, but its spirit lingers. A reminder that faith is not a chapter, but a continual song. After deliverance came peace, and within that peace came purpose. The people rejoiced, yet they also remembered. They feasted, yet they gave. Joy found its completion in generosity. So it is with the heart that knows God. Gratitude always flows outward. As you lie beneath the hush of night, let your gratitude breathe softly into the world around you. Think of one kindness you can offer tomorrow. A word, a prayer, a gentle act. In doing so, you join Esther's legacy, turning grace received into grace given. And that is how the light continues, even after the story's end. Fact 64. Esther's life reminds us that the path to purpose is rarely straight. It weaves through uncertainty, silence, and waiting, yet every step is held in divine design. There were moments she must have wondered why she had been chosen, moments when courage trembled like a flame in the wind. But destiny often moves quietly through hesitation. God's will is not hindered by human fear. It flows through it, sanctifying even our trembling. As you breathe tonight, release your need to understand every turn. Let your spirit rest in the assurance that detours, too, belong to the plan. Every twist of your journey is leading somewhere holy, even now. Fact 65. There is a sacred symmetry in how the book of Esther unfolds. Every act of pride meets humility. Every threat meets deliverance. Every sorrow finds its counterpoint in joy. Such balance is no accident. It is the quiet justice of heaven, restoring harmony where darkness sought to reign. The gallows built for evil became a symbol of righteousness. Despair became celebration. This is the promise of divine order. What is wrong will not remain wrong forever. As you rest beneath the hush of the night, remember that peace is not merely the absence of struggle. It is the final note of justice sung by grace, and that song always plays to completion. Fact 66. After the triumph, Esther did not return to the shadows of fear. She lived her days as a light within the palace, her influence a quiet reflection of divine goodness. True victory does not make us louder. It makes us kinder. She had faced power, pride, and peril, yet she chose gentleness as her legacy. When strength is tempered by love, it becomes eternal. So tonight, let your heart be both soft and strong. You do not need to force the world into peace. You can simply carry peace within you. As you drift toward sleep, feel that same gentle light glowing within, unshaken, unwavering, and endlessly kind. Fact 67. The story of Esther shows us that faith often begins where control ends. When she stepped into the throne room, she carried no guarantee, only trust. Her strength came not from what she knew, but from whom she knew. It is the same with us. Peace does not come from certainty, but from surrender. Sometimes the most powerful prayer is simply, "Lord, I'm here. Use me." As you breathe softly now, let go of the need to know what happens next. Rest in the presence of the one who already does. Like Esther before the king, you are never without favor when you walk in divine trust. Fact 68. Mordecai's story teaches us the quiet glory of consistency. He did not seek recognition or reward. He simply remained faithful day after day. His steadfastness was not born from ambition, but from devotion. And in time, his faithfulness became the foundation for an entire people's salvation. God often uses steady hearts more than mighty hands. As you rest tonight, think of the quiet ways your constancy blesses others, the prayers you whisper, the kindness you offer, the burdens you carry with grace. Each act of faithfulness is a seed sown into eternity. Breathe deeply and know that nothing steady in love is ever wasted. Fact 69. After the storm, the land exhaled peace. The people celebrated their deliverance with light, joy, and gladness. The air, once heavy with fear, now shimmered with laughter and prayer. And in that harmony, the story of Esther found its eternal rhythm. Sorrow transformed into song. Every human heart carries that same capacity for renewal. Even when you feel surrounded by endings, God is quietly composing beginnings. As you breathe in, imagine light filling the spaces where fear once lived. As you breathe out, release all that burdens you into His care. You are part of that same melody of grace, where every sigh becomes a psalm and every night yields gently to dawn. Fact 70. Esther's beauty did not make her story. Her faith did. The world saw her outward grace, but heaven saw the radiance of her obedience. Her courage was not loud, yet it reshaped history. So often, we measure strength by the noise it makes, but true power often whispers. It is the quiet yes that changes everything, the hidden moment when fear bows to trust. As you breathe tonight, Remember that gentleness is not weakness. It is divine strength, wrapped in peace. Let your heart rest in that truth. That grace, not grandeur, is the crown heaven values most. Fact 71. The book of Esther reminds us that redemption can bloom in exile. She lived far from the land of her ancestors, surrounded by customs not her own. Yet the light within her could not be dimmed by distance or circumstance. Faith does not depend on place. It depends on presence. Wherever God is, holiness finds a home. Even in foreign soil, hope took root, and from it came deliverance. If tonight you feel far from where you wish to be, remember Esther in Susa. She was exactly where God needed her to stand. As you breathe softly, rest in the assurance that your present place, too, can hold divine purpose. Fact 72. When the story reached its end, the people did not only survive, they flourished. The fear that once bound them gave way to freedom, the mourning to joy. And from that transformation came tradition, the rhythm of remembering, the sacred pattern of gratitude. Their history became their healing. Each retelling of Esther's story reminded them that God works even when unseen, that his silence is not his absence. As you lie beneath the hush of night, let that same peace fill you. God is still writing unseen victories into your days, turning shadows into songs of thanksgiving. Breathe deeply and feel the quiet assurance that the author of Esther's deliverance is still faithful. Even now, even here, even as you rest. Fact 73. When Esther risked her life to speak before the king, she did so not in anger, but in grace. Her voice carried truth without cruelty, courage without pride. This is the secret of divine strength. It does not shout. It stands still and speaks with love. Her words were wrapped in humility, yet they moved a throne. So often, the hearts we hope to reach are not opened by power, but by gentleness. As you breathe softly tonight, think of the times when kindness accomplished more than force. Let your own words tomorrow carry that same light. Truth spoken in peace, faith clothed in calmness, love that never raises its voice. Fact 74. Mordecai's wisdom became the steady compass of the kingdom. He guided not for gain, but for goodness. When honor crowned him, he remembered compassion. When influence expanded, he extended peace. He understood that leadership in God's design is not domination, but service. To lead is to lift. To rule is to restore. In your own quiet sphere, your home, your work, your friendships, you lead too, through gentleness and grace. As you rest beneath the soft breath of night, think of those you guide simply by being kind. Your example may be someone's turning point, your patience another's deliverance. Peace spreads through hearts like light across water, calm, wide, unstoppable. Fact 75. The story of Esther ends with light filling the hearts of her people. Scripture says, the Jews had light and gladness, joy and honor. That light was more than celebration. It was revelation. They had seen the unseen hand of God, and that sight changed everything. True joy is not loud laughter. It is deep understanding. The quiet realization that we are held, protected, and loved beyond measure. As you drift toward rest, imagine that same light filling your spirit, a calm glow, steady and safe. Let it soothe the corners of your heart where worry once lingered. For even now, that same divine light watches over you, soft as dawn, faithful as eternity. Fact 76. Esther's faith was a light that shone quietly behind palace walls. No trumpet announced it, yet it guided kings and saved nations. There is a beauty in hidden holiness, in the faith that whispers instead of shouts. The world often looks for greatness in grand gestures, but heaven delights in steady devotion. Every unseen prayer, every act of kindness done in silence, ripples outward through eternity. As you breathe tonight, remember, your light need not be large to be lasting. Even a single flame can scatter the shadows. Let your quiet faith glow within you now, soft and unwavering, like a candle in God's hand. Fact 77. When the story reached its peace, the people rejoiced not only in freedom, but in belonging. They had seen the faithfulness of God through one woman's courage and one man's wisdom, and they knew they were not forgotten. The same is true for you. You are not lost to the silence of the world. Heaven knows your name, your story, your sighs. Even when you feel invisible, divine remembrance surrounds you. It is written into the very rhythm of your whole life, just as it was written in the Chronicles of a King. As you rest beneath the hush of night, let that awareness hold you. You are known. You are loved. You are remembered. Fact 78. The story of Esther closes not with thunder, but with stillness, the kind that follows answered prayer. It is the quiet of fulfillment, the peace of promises kept. Every heart that once trembled now beats calmly beneath the shelter of grace. This is how God writes endings, not with noise, but with rest. So, as you close your eyes, imagine that same stillness descending gently upon your thoughts. Let your breathing slow, your mind unwind. The same peace that settled over Susa now settles over you. You have walked through fear, through faith, through light. Now rest in the final gift of the story, the deep calm that comes when everything has found its place in love. Fact 79. The miracle of Esther's story is not only in what happened, but in how it happened. No parting seas, no pillars of fire, only choices, courage, and the quiet unfolding of God's will through human hearts. It shows us that divine power does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers through the ordinary. Your life, too, is filled with such miracles. The unseen mercies that guide your steps, the timely kindness that steadies your heart, the silent protection you never noticed. As you breathe softly tonight, let gratitude rise for the subtle ways heaven moves. God's quiet work is still holy, still mighty, still love. Fact 80. There came a time when Esther no longer needed to act, only to be. Her purpose had been fulfilled, and peace became her dwelling place. This too is sacred, the rest that follows obedience. Not every season is for striving. Some are for stillness, for letting grace do the work. When you have given your all in faith, you can safely exhale and trust the outcome to God. As you lie beneath the blanket of night, remember that rest is not idleness. It is worship in quiet form. The one who called you to move also calls you now to simply breathe and be held. Fact 81. The story of Esther ends, but its message continues. A hymn of divine providence echoing through time. It reminds us that unseen grace governs even the smallest detail, and that love is never absent, even in exile. Every generation that retells her story touches again the heartbeat of God's faithfulness. As you rest tonight, you are part of that same lineage of trust, the quiet continuation of faith passed from heart to heart. Close your eyes and picture that light traveling through the centuries, from Esther's candle to your own. Its glow has never faded, for it burns with the flame of eternal care. Let that light settle gently within you, whispering, the story of grace never ends. Fact 82. Esther's courage was not born in a moment. It was shaped in quiet preparation. The days of waiting, the months of uncertainty, the silence between her prayers, all were classrooms for her spirit. Faith is often formed not in the crisis, but in the calm before it. Every quiet season teaches us how to stand when the storm comes. If tonight you find yourself waiting, take heart. Waiting is holy work. It is the gentle shaping of the soul, the hidden strengthening of faith. As you breathe deeply now, imagine God's patient hand guiding you through the stillness, crafting your courage in unseen ways. Fact 83. When Esther revealed her identity, she did so without bitterness or pride. Her truth came wrapped in humility, her honesty laced with grace. She did not accuse, she appealed. This is the art of godly courage. Truth spoken with love, conviction softened by compassion. Sometimes our greatest witness is not in what we fight against, but in how we stand for what is right. Her words changed a nation because they carried peace, not rage. As you rest beneath the quiet of night, let your own heart learn that tone. Steady, kind, faithful. The world is changed not by volume, but by the sound of love unafraid. Fact 84. After the turmoil ended, joy found its way home. The people celebrated with feasts, laughter, and thanksgiving. But beneath their joy was reverence. They knew that deliverance came not from chance, but from the quiet choreography of divine mercy. That same mercy still moves among us, unseen, unhurried, unfailing. Every breath you take tonight is a small miracle of that grace. Let your heart rest in wonder at the constancy of God's care. He who guided Esther's steps still guides yours, with the same gentle precision. As you drift toward sleep, think of this truth. The story of salvation is written not only in ancient scrolls, but in your very heartbeat. Steady, faithful, beloved. Fact 85. The story of Esther teaches that even in silence, prayer has a sound. Though the book never records her petitions aloud, her actions sang of surrender. Her stillness hummed with faith. Prayer does not always require words. Sometimes it is found in the steady rhythm of trust. Each time Esther waited instead of worrying, heaven heard her. So too, your silence tonight can be a prayer. Every breath, every heartbeat, every thought of gratitude rising like incense before God. You do not have to speak to be heard. Rest knowing that your quiet faith is a melody that reaches the heart of heaven. Fact 86. When the people of Persia watched the transformation of the Jews' sorrow into joy, they saw the evidence of divine favor. The scripture says that many among the nations became Jews, drawn to the peace they witnessed. True faith is magnetic. It shines so gently that others long for its light. Esther's obedience became a lantern in a darkened world. As you rest beneath the still night sky, imagine your own life glowing with that same quiet light. Not forcing, not striving, simply shining. Every act of kindness is a candle. Every moment of grace, another flame. Together, they make the night beautiful. Fact 87. The story ends with a kingdom at peace, but its deeper lesson is eternal. That God is faithful, even when hidden, and His timing perfect, even when delayed. We often look for miracles that dazzle the senses, yet His greatest wonders are the ones that steady our hearts. In Esther's world, He moved through details, through choices, through the passing of days, just as He moves through yours. Nothing is wasted. Every moment is a thread in the tapestry of His mercy. As you breathe slowly now, imagine that tapestry being woven around you. Colors of grace, strands of peace, patterns of purpose. Your life is part of that divine design, tenderly shaped by hands that never tire. Fact 88. Esther's story shows that destiny often begins in humility. She did not enter the palace seeking greatness. She entered simply being faithful where she was placed. God's favor finds the humble heart, the one that listens before it speaks and serves before it rules. When the crown rested upon her head, it was not reward, it was responsibility. Every blessing carries purpose, and every position is a place of ministry. As you breathe softly now, think of your own life, the spaces you stand in, the people you touch, the quiet influence you carry. You, too, are placed with purpose, and in that gentle truth, there is peace. Fact 89. There is beauty in how Esther's story moves from fear to freedom. At first, her voice trembled, her steps were unsure. But through faith, that fear transformed into a calm boldness rooted in divine assurance. This is how grace works, not by removing fear, but by replacing it with love. Scripture tells us, perfect love casts out fear. Esther's courage was not defiance, it was devotion. She loved her people more than her comfort, her God more than her safety. As you rest tonight, let love be your courage. Let it quiet your thoughts, soften your breathing, and fill your heart with holy calm. Fact 90. The book of Esther ends with celebration, not of one person, but of a people united in gratitude. Their deliverance became a song sung across generations. Every year, they remembered. Fear turned to laughter, sorrow to strength, exile to belonging. Remembrance itself became worship. Even now, every story of survival, every moment of grace is part of that same melody. As you breathe in, think of what God has carried you through. As you breathe out, whisper, thanks for what remains. Gratitude turns memory into praise, and praise into peace. Let that peace settle over you like soft light, quiet, constant, and eternal. The God who turned their mourning into dancing watches over you still. Fact 91. The story of Esther reminds us that courage and gentleness can dwell in the same heart. She did not conquer through force, but through faith, not by command, but by compassion. The world often mistakes quietness for weakness, yet heaven sees it as wisdom. Esther's strength was born in stillness, the kind that listens for God's whisper before it speaks. True bravery is not loud, it is calm. It is the steady assurance that doing what is right is always enough. As you breathe tonight, let that peace rest within you. Your strength need not roar, it only needs to trust. And in that gentle trust, your heart finds its sanctuary. Fact 92. When the people of God celebrated their deliverance, they gave gifts to one another. Joy became generosity. Blessing became sharing. It is a holy rhythm. When we are filled, we pour. When we are loved, we love. Gratitude always seeks expression. Esther's triumph did not end in self-glory, but in community. Her faith became a feast that fed others with hope. As you rest tonight, think of one kindness you can give when dawn returns. A word, a prayer, a gesture of peace. Even the smallest act of love ripples outward like light through the darkness, carrying God's touch from heart to heart. Fact 93. Mordecai's legacy was not power, but peace. Scripture says he sought the good of his people and spoke peace to all. This is the final mark of faith. When strength becomes service and wisdom becomes compassion. He had endured hardship and humiliation, yet his heart remained gentle. That is true victory, to rise and still be kind. As you breathe softly, think of the quiet leaders who shaped your life, those whose patience taught you more than their words. Now, Let your own spirit become that kind of calm light for others. When your heart is at peace, the world around you begins to heal. And in that gentle healing, God's presence lingers. Fact 94. Esther's story reveals that providence often works in silence long before it is seen. While she prepared for the king, heaven was preparing the king for her. Before her words touched his ears, grace had softened his heart. This is how God moves, gently ahead of us, shaping paths we have not yet walked. Every unanswered prayer may already be unfolding in unseen places. As you rest tonight, let your worries drift like leaves upon a river of trust. The current of His will flows even when unseen, and it always carries us toward good. You do not need to know the route to trust the one who guides it. Fact 95. The story of Haman fades into silence, while Esther and Mordecai's peace endures. Pride burns bright for a moment, but humility glows forever. Evil may seem loud for a season, but it cannot outlast love. The justice of God is not hurried, yet it is sure, restoring balance with gentleness and grace. So when you see wrongs unrighted or cruelty unchecked, remember Esther's time. Deliverance came at the appointed hour, not the impatient one. As you breathe softly now, release the need to control outcomes. Trust the long patience of heaven. Justice, like dawn, always arrives quietly and perfectly on time. Fact 96. At the heart of Esther's legacy lies hope. Not the fragile kind that depends on circumstance, but the holy kind that rests in God's unseen hand. It is the hope that wakes even in exile, prays in silence, and rejoices when the story turns. Hope is the thread that held Esther steady and wove her story into victory. It is the same thread that binds every believer to God's promises still. As you breathe in, imagine that golden thread wrapping softly around your heart, strong, unbreakable, eternal. Let it remind you that every night gives way to morning, every waiting heart to joy. You are held by that same hope, and in it you can safely rest. Fact 97. The closing of Esther's story is a portrait of divine completion. Every loose thread finds its place. Every sorrow finds its healing. It reminds us that God's stories do not end in confusion. They end in quiet order, where peace replaces fear and purpose redeems pain. Even the chapters of your life that seem unfinished are still being written with that same gentle precision. You may not see the full picture yet, but the artist has not set down his brush. As you rest tonight, breathe in that truth. Nothing is wasted in the hands of grace. Every tear, every pause, every prayer becomes part of a design too beautiful to rush. Fact 98. When the people remembered Esther's courage, they also remembered the God who sustained her. Her faith became a doorway through which generations could glimpse divine faithfulness. That is the legacy of every soul that trusts deeply. Their peace outlives them. Long after her voice fell silent, her story still spoke. The ripples of her obedience spread like light across time, reaching you even now. As you breathe softly beneath the hush of night, let your heart rest in that same lineage of light. You, too, are part of the eternal chain of grace, a living echo of God's enduring goodness. Fact 99. Purim became the festival of joy, a sacred rhythm of remembrance and renewal. It was not only about deliverance from danger, but about the restoration of identity, a people reminded of who they were and whose they were. In your own quiet way, God does the same for you. He turns moments of fear into reminders of belonging, weaving every trial into testimony. You are not defined by what threatened you, but by the grace that rescued you. As you rest, let your soul whisper thanks for the deliverances you've known and for those still unseen. In every breath of peace, heaven is near, and joy still finds you, softly, faithfully, completely. Fact 100. The book of Esther closes without the name of God ever being spoken, yet his presence fills every moment. This is its final and greatest truth, that the divine does not need to be declared to be known. He is the quiet current beneath all things, the still hand guiding each step, the breath that turns fear into faith. In Esther's silence we find our own, a peace that comes not from understanding, but from trust. The God who watched over her watches over you still. He moves gently through your days, tenderly through your nights, weaving your story with the same care he gave to hers. As you breathe now, let that assurance rest upon you. You are seen, you are chosen, you are held, and now, beloved traveler, your pilgrimage through the story of Esther draws to a quiet close. You have walked through shadow and light, through silence and song, through fear and faith. You have stood beside a queen who found her courage in surrender, and a people who found their joy in remembrance. Their story, though ancient, has breathed again tonight, whispering to you of divine timing, quiet bravery, and the peace that follows trust. So let the noise of the world fade away now. Let your heart settle like soft dust beneath the evening stars. You have nothing left to prove, nothing left to fear. You are already where grace has led you to be, resting, breathing, dwelling in peace. Imagine the lamps of Susa flickering low, the city finally at rest. The moonlight falls across its quiet streets, and somewhere beyond them, a queen prays in gratitude. That same calm light now shines upon you, the light of promise, of presence, of perfect love. If tonight's journey has brought stillness to your soul, let that peace linger as you drift into dreams. For the same God who wrote Esther's story writes yours, and his handwriting is love. May peace guard your dreams until morning, and may grace be the first light to greet you when you wake. Amen.